Hello Mayhem Makers, I am Mindy with Quilting Mayhem and welcome to the Alchemy Sew Along. Today I'm going to show you the basic cutting to prepare for all your paper pieces. You're going to end up with all kinds of little prepared hexies. Most of them are going to be a nice, straight, easy, quick way to cut them, but I will show you also how to cut out like the dot print if you're wanting to do some of that along the way as you go, because the quilt does show some small bits of fussy cutting. So we'll kind of also touch on that so that you can get all your fabrics ready and get going on month one. One of the tricks I do is I do have printed out a smaller version of the pattern that comes with the kit, and that way I can kind of make my notes, how many I need to cut, which fabrics, all those kinds of things. So it's a nice way to keep track of what you need to do. But for the basic fabrics, anything that you're not trying to get a special print out of or a fabric going a certain direction, it's very simple. The template that I highly recommend that you use is essentially 2 inches wide. You can measure it on your ruler. And so all I do is cut 2-inch strips. Easy peasy, right? So I've ironed the fabric so it's nice and straight, and I'm going to trim it so I have a nice straight edge. And potentially I need to change that blade. And then turn it around. Now, if you're a little more experienced, you could have this fabric folded in half and do 2 strips at a time. So I'll show you that method also. This is how I get a lot done at once, is I actually fold it in half. So I've got, you know, my yardage folded in half, selvages together. I've got this lined up nice and straight. And that way when I trim, I'm trimming all 4 layers of fabric at the same time. So you want to make sure you have a good sharp blade if you're going to do that method. And then I just park my ruler, rotate this around, and then line up using the ruler on the 2-inch mark. All right. So just cut a bunch of 2-inch strips. I'll do all of them usually at once, but for you guys, you don't need to sit and watch me cut a whole bunch of fabric. So we'll set the rest of this aside. That's essentially how I do the strips. This one I'm gonna move out of the way. And then all you're doing is taking your template. Now the nice thing with this project is you don't have to be super precise, because you are going to fold your seam allowance around and baste it to the back of your paper. So if this straight line isn't super straight, super pretty, it doesn't really matter. So I just trim those edges, and then I'm actually going to rotate it around because the rest of this works easier for me. I'm kind of going left to right, but it's up to you. Now, I actually pull this straight across, finish that guy up. So 4 at once, because you are doing a lot of them, so it is helpful. And apparently, all right, so that diagonal line, I'm just lining it up there. I'm lining up top and bottom. So we're going to trim off that edge, and then I just do a diagonal line again, pull it away, trim that off, and that's all you're doing. You're just going to keep going down your strip doing that. All right, so fussy cutting is a little different because you are trying to do, and you can tell I've already had to take some out of this fabric, you're trying to feature a design, keep it centered. So if you're new, you can trace around this, say with a marking tool, and draw around, make sure everything's lined up the way you want. But otherwise, you know, the nice thing with these templates is they do have the center where it's kind of like a viewfinder, so you can line it up. So I kind of look at my center points, my top and bottom, make sure it's lined up as best as possible. And depending how many you need out of a fabric, you may want to plot it out and be like, okay, can I get, you know, each one of these instead of just kind of sporadically if you're trying to conserve fabric. But if you're not worried, you just pick one. I usually just start in a corner and work my way through the fabric. And this way I do some bigger cuts. And generally we'll kind of do that. So I can pull it away, so I can rotate it, and then just do that. Thankfully, not a lot of these guys in the quilt, so because it gets a little tedious. Otherwise, you could be there a while. Now, because this one I've already gotten too close, I unfortunately am skipping and I'm just kind of going down this row, and I would potentially keep going depending how many I'm doing, but do the same thing. Line it up and then just... Now, if you're trying to conserve fabric, you may not cut all the way to the end. You may just be trying to do your marks and then cut. Thankfully, I'm not too worried with this one. Otherwise, I just go a little bit off on each corner, so I make sure that it will cleanly come out of the fabric as I'm going. But if you're new, you can draw it, look at it. If you don't like it, remove your marks, draw it again before actually cutting. But I just look at it. I can turn the template, make sure it fits in the area I'm trying to work in as best as possible. And you just kind of keep going around, cutting out fabric. So month one, that's really all the cutting has. And then next video, we'll show you how to actually baste them and get them ready to stitch. Hope you have an easy time with this. If you have any problems, just reach out, call us at the store, email us, all of that, message us through Facebook, Instagram, any of those avenues, and we'll gladly give you some help. Or even come to the store, see us. We'll do some demos in person if you need, whatever it takes. We want you to enjoy this quilt. It's going to be beautiful when it's done. Labor of love. It'll be great. So hope it helps you with this video, and keep on stitching.